Hey everyone, this is Jeff Culhane, voice of the Florida State Seminoles, and you're listening to the Phillip Jordan Show podcast.
One, the Arkansas Razorbacks dismissed head coach Sam Pittman. Was it a surprise? Also, 2, the Auburn Tigers, what's up with them? And 3, are the Ole Miss Rebels the best team in the SEC? What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Phillip Jordan Show podcast. I am Phillip Jordan, in studio host and producer of Doesn't Want Football on 96.9 The Legend, and also writer for the Auburn Wire. Got a fun show planned for you guys today. I'm going to be joined by Adam Spencer from Saturday Down South. We're going to talk about many different topics around the SEC. You heard me there. We're going to talk about the Sam Pittman dismissal at Arkansas, Bob Petrino stepping in as the interim head coach. Could Gus Malzahn be up for that job? We'll throw that at Adam as one of the questions in that part of the discussion. We will talk about all things Auburn with Adam, what he's seeing, especially what's wrong with the Auburn offense. That is the big topic right now. And we'll look around the SEC. Ole Miss, are they the best team in this conference? Plenty of stuff to talk about with Adam Spencer. And obviously with this episode, usually we do a interview on the pod or an episode featuring a guest that covers the team Auburn playing that week. Well, as you know, Auburn is off this week, so decided to just look around the entire SEC, and we're going to do so with Adam Spencer from Saturday Down South. But before we get into that with Adam, I'll let you guys know you can find me in the podcast. Find me on social media at PJordanSEC. Podcast available on all your favorite podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. Free to do so. And leave a review. I will read it on a future edition of the show. And if you leave 4 stars, you're just a straight-up hater or an Alabama fan. You can also check out the show on YouTube at the Phillip Jordan Sports YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for all notifications, and please leave a comment on a video, and I'll read it on a future edition as well. You can always email me at sports.phillipjordan@gmail.com. Now let's jump into it with today's featured guest, Adam Spencer from Saturday Down South. Everybody, my guest today on the show is Adam Spencer. Check my executive editor at Saturday Down South and Tradition. I did talk about the Big Ten, but we're not going to talk about the Big Ten here on this podcast. No worries to anybody. But we're going to look at what's all Auburn, but also we're going to look at the SEC overall as we have some interesting teams at the top now. But Adam, appreciate you joining me as always.
Yeah, happy to do it. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you on. It was a interesting and a very fun weekend of SEC football. We saw our first coach fired of the year. I was a year off of that. I thought that was going to happen last year, and then Bob Petrino would take over. But, you know, it happened this year. Ole Miss beating LSU. Auburn offense being offensive as always. And then, of course, you got the Alabama beating Georgia. So it was a really good weekend of football, though, in the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, I think we learned a lot. You know, last week it was kind of, you know, a little bit of everybody taking care of business the way that we expected. This week we finally had some results. Like I think I had, you know, one team move in my power rankings after week 4, and then this week everything got reshuffled. So like, you know, that was an impactful weekend of SEC football. So, you know, those are what we like. So yeah, it was a lot of fun to watch from wire to wire too.
You know. And I told you off air, we leave it all. We're not supposed to leave it Arkansas. And after Saturday, getting beat like they did against Notre Dame, them scoring 56 points. And then the week before, blowing the big lead to Memphis. And then obviously giving up a lot of points to Ole Miss. So they've been giving up a lot of points lately. Did you foresee this happening with Sam Pittman getting dismissed on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, I had my news team. I said, like, let's watch out for this. You know, I didn't have any inside information, but, you know, when you lose like that and you're on the hot seat, you know, I think too, if you're Arkansas, like if you're an SEC program, like I know that there was some thought that maybe they'd wait like 3 more weeks for Sam Pittman to fall below 500. You know, they could have saved themselves like $2.9 million. Like, if you're an SEC school, you're not like, you shouldn't be trying to save $2.9 million. Like, that's a bad look when the conference is printing its own money. So, I think that it was the right call. I mean, I think, it's $9.8 million, which is, for us is no small chunk of change. But when you're talking about an SEC athletic program, I mean, that's a bullet that you can bite. And, I wasn't surprised that they did that. I mean, I like the guy, Sam Pitt. I mean, everybody's saying this. Sam Pittman's a good guy, and he is. He's a legend as an assistant coach and stuff, and he deserves a lot of credit for what he did for Arkansas. Like, he pulled them out of one of the lowest of low situations and just raised the floor of the program. Now they're going to try to hire somebody that can raise the ceiling, and we'll see who they hired. It's an important decision, and but yeah, I wish Sam Pittman all the best. I mean, he's a good coach. It's just his time in Arkansas has come to an end, and like, I think everybody can see that after Saturday.
Do you see any scenario where Bobby Petrino becomes the full-time head coach and gets that interim taken off after the year?
I don't. I mean, I know all the key players are different there. Like Hunter Yurachek wasn't the guy that had to fire Petrino after the motorcycle incident and stuff. I just think there's too much baggage. I think he's getting up there a little bit in age. Like, I mean, if you were knocking on the doorstep of like a playoff berth or something, maybe you consider it. But like, I just think you got to go with, my colleague Connor O'Gara put together a list, and like, a lot of them are like younger guys. You have your Alex Golishes, you have your John Sumralls. There's a lot of guys like that are ready for an opportunity. That and if I'm Arkansas, I'm not hiring John Gruden either. But I think there's a young, hungry coach that could take Arkansas to the next step.
So you don't think Gus Malzahn's name will be mentioned for the head coach at Arkansas? Because it happens every time that it comes open, Gus's name gets mentioned.
And I think it should. I mean, I think, he deserves a fair shake at the job if he wants it. I mean, he's, we've seen what he did with, what he's doing with Florida State's offense. I mean, the offense wasn't really the reason that they lost at Virginia on Friday. I mean, so I think he should, if he wants, be interviewed for the job. I don't know if that's the direction that I would go, but I think that transition this to Auburn, the further Auburn gets away from Gus Malzahn, the more appreciation I think maybe y'all have for what Gus was able to do down there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you kind of look back at it. I mean, the Brian Harsin thing, which I'm like the optimist, Adam. Every year I feel like, okay, this is going to be a good year. Then, I get proven wrong. Last year I picked them to go 9-3. So, you can see how much I probably know about this stuff. But, I'll say this one thing on Gus. I think it's good for him that he's not the head coach at Florida State. Like, he can just call plays again. Like, he doesn't have to worry about that stuff. And I think that he's kind of, we're starting to see a little bit of the Gus Malzahn evolve, just a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that we saw like that path. I mean, I think Brian Kelly did it really well. He won a national championship. He didn't have to recruit any of those guys. He didn't have to hit the recruiting trails. It is what it was, and led to a national championship for Ryan Day and his staff. Having a guy that could call plays like that, and now Chip Kelly is working with Pete Carroll at the NFL level, where he especially doesn't have to go do any recruiting. So, I think that maybe that's what Gus wants, and if that is what he wants to work as an offensive coordinator at a big name program, I mean, I think he's got a few more years left of having lots of job opportunities should he decide to leave Florida State. But I think you're right that he might just be happy with being a top offensive minded assistant.
And, does it hurt living in Florida? That helps out too a little bit. We talked about Auburn. Obviously, they're coming off their second loss in a row. Can't use the referees as an excuse this time with the game where it went against A&M. And the defense played great. I mean, it's a shame that defense performance got wasted the way it did with the loss. They did everything they could to give the offense a chance. And it's like, I felt like after the 3-0 start, especially after Baylor, there was some optimism with the Auburn offense, the way they ran the ball. Apparently, the last 2 weeks, Hugh Freeze just has decided not to run the ball at all at Auburn. But you just looking at where they're at, 3-2, the offense has struggled. And you can look at the offensive line has issues, not running the ball, Jackson Arnold holding the ball too long, all along. You know, so many different things you can throw out there. What's wrong with the Auburn offense? What are you seeing when you see him on the field?
So I'm going to read you a stat that my colleague Spencer Davis put in our Saturday football newsletter this week. So Auburn is 3 for 28 on third down this season. Like, Spencer makes the case that this is almost statistically impossible. So he says, given the average third down conversion rate in the SEC versus SEC games so far this season of 38.8%, the odds that a team could convert on 3 or fewer such tries over a sample of 28 attempts is just over 0.1%. So Auburn needs to go 13 for 13 on its next third downs just to get itself back up to that average of 38.8%. That's how inexplicably bad they've been on third down. And you can't win games. Like, they're doing a good job from last year. Like, last year it was turnovers that Peyton Thorne, throwing interceptions, dropping the football. That's what caused them to shoot themselves in the foot last year. They've cleaned that up. But now, if you're not moving the chains on third down, you're not going to win games. And they are historically bad at doing that. They went 0 for 13 against Texas A&M and then 0 for 2 on fourth down. Like, you just can't have that happen and expect to win, no matter if the 85 Bears are your defensive unit.
Yeah, you can't do it. And I don't think they're going to get 13 third downs in a row against Georgia. I just don't think that's going to happen. Yeah. Did they get it wrong, get a quarterback?
Yeah, I think they did. And what's funny is that they have the Stanford transfer, Ashton Daniels, there, right? So, like, that was kind of like an eyebrow raising, like, oh, well, why did they bring in him too? It's kind of like, like, why did they do that? Like, you got to see what you have in him now. There's no excuse not to. You got the bye week. You gotta let him run with the ones. I mean, we've seen it work at a different SEC school. I mean, you've seen Trinidad Chambliss come in. They brought him in from Division II Ferris State, and everybody was like, even I'm on the record as saying, like, Austin Simmons was my Heisman dark horse. I could have gotten a lot better odds if I had said Trinidad Chambliss was my Heisman dark horse. So you got to see what you got in Ashton Daniels at this point. Like, you just have to. Jackson Arnold, he's shown his talent, but if he's not going to run the ball and he's not going to pick up third downs, like, ever for any reason, you've got to see what you got in the backup.
Yeah, and there's a lot of times that it's been shown that there's guys open, he's just not letting the ball go, and that's kind of thing you got is a frustrating thing for the receivers because they have a talented group of receivers. I mean, Cam Coleman's one of the best, most talented receivers in the country, but even Jesse Palmer mentioned during the broadcast, like, they're not moving him around; they're just putting him in one spot. There's no creativity with getting him the ball, and then you got to think too, if this season goes the way it's going now. Okay, Eric Singleton's going to be off to the NFL, but a lot of these talented offensive playmakers will probably look, I'm going to get a portal and go somewhere else. They're going to get me the ball.
Yeah, and that's the reality of college football these days. And so, you got to take care of your guys. I mean, why would you stay if you had an option to go somewhere else with when this is the offense? Yeah, I mean, like, who could have thought that having 3 different play callers for 3 different downs could lead to some incoherent, clunky offensive performances? Like, I don't know. Everybody but the people at Auburn. So, it's frustrating that, like, something like that was so obviously a bad idea that, like, he was getting mocked for it. Like, you got to change that up. Like, this stubbornness, and, like, it doesn't do any coaches any good. Like, Florida is another example of that, where during the bye week here, Billy Napier, made some changes to the staff, but didn't relinquish play calling. Like, you got to fire yourself, buddy, with the way that the offense is going. Like, if you're going to save your overall head coaching job, like, you need to find somebody to run the offense. And, that stubbornness, the sticking by this 3 different play caller system at Auburn, like, not moving guys around, like, pre-snap motion is one of the easiest ways to try to see what a defense is doing. Like, would I trust a guy like Matt Patricia at Ohio State, who's seen it all at the NFL level? Like, he might be able to throw some wrinkles at, these guys who, Nick Saban might be able to throw some wrinkles at some of these guys that, that they don't know and disguise coverages a little bit. But for the most part, give Jackson Arnold, let him start, give him some clues as to what the defense is doing before you snap the ball. And they're just not doing that. The coaching has just been atrocious this year on both sides of the ball. And, I think, the offense is just an absolute mess, and it's not going to work with this current system of play calling and probably with this quarterback too.
Yeah, I mean, Jess Palmer said it good on Saturday. He said you could have left the offense at the hotel, and Auburn still would have had just as good of a chance of winning the game. But let's get off Auburn. Now, in your power rankings, you have Ole Miss at number 1. So, an impressive victory over LSU. And we'll get to – I got to ask you some stuff on LSU too. But Trinidad Chambliss playing great. I mean, he threw for 314, 1 touchdown, overall over 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. The way they're playing right now, do you see Ole Miss as the best team in the SEC?
Yeah, I mean, so I think that if he's doing that, he's putting up 300 yards through the air and 100 yards on the ground. He's taking care of the ball. That's something that Austin Simmons wasn't doing. In his first 2 starts, he had 4 interceptions. So you just can't do that in a Lane Kiffin offense. You have to take care of the ball because, you're going to have to make a lot of decisions. You're going to be, running an up-tempo thing. You're going to have a lot of, they run the ball over 50% of the time, but the quarterbacks that run the Lane Kiffin offense still throw it a ton just because they run a high volume of plays. So, yeah, I think that, Chambliss, it's his job until he proves it's not. I just really like what I'm seeing from them on both sides of the ball. I thought that, they did enough to keep the LSU offense on its toes. And, just all around, they're playing some really good, exciting brand of football. And all the other teams around them, not to say Ole Miss is perfect, but all the other teams around them have very clear flaws. Alabama just loses these inexplicable games. Georgia's secondary is just not what we're used to seeing from a Georgia secondary, and their Georgia pass rush has also been non-existent this year. So, I think that some of these other top tier teams, I mean, Tennessee has injuries at corner that are clearly costing them at this point. My Missouri Tigers haven't really played anybody yet. They've beaten the people that line up across from them, which is all you can do. But, they don't have that signature win yet. So, there's a lot of questions about the other teams. And I think that Ole Miss has put themselves in the best position, answering as many of them as anybody else in the league.
Yeah, it's really interesting with Ole Miss because last year was the year they were supposed to be a playoff team, and I felt like going into the year, a lot of people just want to talk about Ole Miss. Not like they thought it was going to be bad, just kind of like maybe a middle of the pack, just because Jackson Dart and all the guys that were gone. But now the way they're playing now, and in Missouri, I feel like they're that under the radar team right now. And like you said, we'll see what's going to be coming up for them. So, and then the teams that we thought were going to be good, Florida is struggling. I think a lot of people thought DJ Lagway, they would be a better team. Texas, I think Texas is still a question because we just got to see Arch play somebody good again. And
we need to see Arch play somebody in the middle of he's played a great defense in Ohio State, and then he played 3 nobodies. So let's see him play somebody. Florida is a good, solid defense. Let's see how he does against Florida because it's not the best defense in the country in Ohio State, and it's not, Sam Houston either. So let's see how he does this weekend.
Yeah, maybe he can flex on somebody other than Sam Houston. What? That was not the flex you think it is, man. That is not.
He said his mom did not like that. So,
LSU, and this is another team. Look, the defense is good this year. They have a good defense. They went out and they spent the money to get a good defense to a secondary. The offense just has not taken off the way you thought it would. And Garrett Nussmeier had one of his Garrett Nussmeier moments against Ole Miss, a bad interception. And, obviously all pressure, I think, on Brian Kelly to deliver something there at LSU. I mean, they're too talented, I think, not to be a playoff team, but the offense just hasn't taken off.
Yeah, I think we may have underrated how important Will Campbell and the other 3 starters that they lost along the offensive line were. They just haven't been able to get into a rhythm. They've been banged up in the running game. Caden Durham missed this past game, which hurts. They don't have the depth at running back. Garrett Nussmeier is dealing with something. He won't say what. They've said it's not like something that should be hindering his play. Like, I don't mind the bad interception, like, because that's the play that he was making last year. Like, he was putting up a ton of yards. He was playing with confidence. He was slinging the thing all over the yard, kind of like a Brett Favre type. Like, he needs to play with that kind of recklessness. Like, I want to see more of that. Like, if he plays like that for 3 hours on a Saturday, you can take the one bad throw. It's when you're so buttoned up and then it's like, okay, well, now go make a play. And then he throws the bad interception that costs you in a big spot. Well, he's got to have that freedom to, get that out of the way earlier in the game by being more aggressive. And I don't think that they've been really aggressive. He's, maybe second guessing himself a lot more. I don't know if they it's clear that they've tried to coach some of that out of him. And, I think that you kind of, put the magic back into the bottle in a lot of ways. And, I think that they just need to open it up a little bit and see what they've got, because the defense is going to generally be able to, dig them out of some holes. And we just got to, let Garrett be Garrett a little bit, I think, moving forward.
Now, the Alabama-Georgia game, and I guess everybody at Georgia thought, okay, Nick Saban's gone. Alabama will not be a problem anymore. This will be Georgia's conference. But Kalen DeBoer's got Kirby Smart's number now, 2-0 against them. You're talking about Alabama. Obviously, they had to get lost against Florida State to start the year, and they did not look good. I mean, it just they just look bad in so many different levels. I don't think Ty Simpson was bad in that game, though. I think he was okay. He was one of the few things that was all right. But he has been playing well. No interceptions, 11 touchdowns. He had another really good game. With Alabama, do you see them as maybe kind of trending toward they may have some of those issues we saw in week one fixed, and they can kind of be that a next team, in the SEC that we look as contenders?
I want to see this weekend first. This is what Kalen DeBoer does. Like, I think he's now like 7-1 against AP top 10 teams as a head coach at the FBS level, which is insane. But they beat Georgia last year, and then they went to Vanderbilt and lost. They come into this year with, not a ton of hype. They were still a highly rated team, and then just completely fall apart in week one at Florida State. So was that the humbling moment? Because you don't get another one. Like, they had 3 humbling moments last year where they lost to Vanderbilt, they lost to Tennessee, they lost to Oklahoma, and just, those Oklahoma and Vanderbilt losses especially were, unacceptable, frankly, and Nick Saban would not have allowed that. And so they can win these big games, though. They can get up for the big games. It's just now, what's the character of your team? Now, are you all stopping and smelling the flowers? Or are you still grinding this week? And I think we'll learn that this weekend if this 2025 Alabama team has learned its lesson from week one. But it's just so frustrating that they came out in week one and got beaten like that. It's so frustrating that we're having this conversation after a year where they had all the talent to be a playoff team last year and just fell apart. So we'll see if Kalen DeBoer can keep his guys up for this revenge game against Vanderbilt. And I think that helps, is that Vanderbilt is rolling, they're undefeated. Diego Pavia is talking his game, but Tommy Castellanos was talking his game too. And so, we'll see. I just want to wait and see what this weekend holds for Alabama before I put them in the playoff or say that they're, a fluke.
Yeah, because you can't play Vanderbilt thinking too high of yourself, because that is a team that is always going to play. This team is going to play with a chip on the shoulder with Diego Pavia at quarterback. Us versus the world, they can use anything to motivate. And honestly, they're better this year than they were last year.
Oh, yeah. Much better. And, I do have a little bit of concern coming into this game because they just allowed 35 points to Utah State. They're going to score on Alabama. They just are. Diego Pavia, Eli Stowers, Junior Sherrill's stepped up a lot in these few weeks. They have a lot of top end talent on defense, but they just don't have a ton of depth on defense. And I think that they started to get a little, worn down as that game went on against Utah State. So I want to see Alabama's going to be able to score points too. So I think that this game, both teams are probably going to get into the 30s. It might be a race to 40 to see who wins this one. So let's just hope that it doesn't end in a 40-40 tie like the Packers Cowboys on Sunday night.
Well, luckily, college, you don't have to worry about the tie things. That's one thing for there. Did you ever think we would see a day where game day was at Alabama playing Vanderbilt? That's just when I saw it, when I got the text alert on my phone, I think Sunday. I was like, I never thought I would see that in my lifetime.
Well, now I'm upset about it because it probably makes them less likely to go to like if Alabama wins this weekend, the obvious choice is to go to Columbia and do the show from Mizzou ahead of next weekend's game. But would they really go follow Alabama 2 weeks in a row? I mean, it wouldn't be crazy, but I just think it's less likely now. So now I'm frustrated about it from a Mizzou alum standpoint. But because we could have had it when South Carolina came to town too, but South Carolina didn't hold up its end of the deal. So we're just waiting for our own Vanderbilt here, I guess.
Yeah, well, on the guy for color Auburn, ain't got to worry about a game day until basketball season. That's the only time game day is going to be coming to Auburn. Real quickly, we had to talk about team that lost game, Georgia. I thought, coming into this year, big question was Gunnar Stockton. I think he's played really well for them. I mean, their defense, and you mentioned their secondary, and this is not the same kind of Georgia defense. And another thing that's alarming with this team, they've gotten off to some slow starts in these big games. Against Tennessee, they were down 21-7 at halftime, down 14-0 against Alabama. And honestly, in the fourth quarter, I'm still scratching my head at him. What was Kirby doing going for it on 4th and 1? You're down by 3, kick a field goal. I mean, it's still I didn't get that. The big drop obviously hurt them there in the third quarter. But obviously with Georgia, they're good. And I think offensively, they're, a really good team. The defense has got some questions. So what's kind of like being your take on Georgia?
Yeah, I mean, I think that – I go back and forth on that 4th and 1 call. Like, you're at home, I think you could take the tie. But I think that in the past, this is the attitude and the swagger that those championship teams have played with. So I get what Kirby was trying to do. He's trying to say, like, let's go win this game. Let's go be the alphas in the situation. But it just didn't pan out this time. So, I mean, you go back, maybe, I mean, hindsight's 20/20. But yeah, defensively, I mean, I think that the pass rush has always been the most important part. And when you have guys like Jalen Walker, when you have Trayvon Walker from a few years ago, when you have Jalen Carter, when you have Jordan Davis, all these guys that we see on Sundays now, I think that when you have that threat and you can get the pressure on the opposing quarterback, it covers up a lot of inefficiencies and weaknesses in your secondary, and they are not getting to the quarterback this year. And now the corners are on an island more and more. Like, no secondary. You could put an all-star lineup of prime Darrelle Revis. You could put Patrick Peterson out there. Like, if you're not getting to the quarterback, those guys are eventually going to get burned, So it's just, they got to figure out a way to generate more pressure, whether that's bringing more blitzes or, just having like a CJ Allen type, or just finding maybe a freshman is out there who is ready for a bigger role and can come in and, just be a wild card. Like, I don't know, but they've got to figure out a way to get after opposing quarterbacks, because the secondary also is not as elite as past championship level Georgia defenses. So that's been hurting them, and it's as simple as getting after the quarterback.
And then they have Kentucky this Saturday. I think a lot of people would probably look, and I believe this, they're favored by like 20 points and everything. But I'm not looking at that. I don't think that they're going to get there, because whenever these two play, it's like you never feel like Georgia's going to lose the game, but it's also a rock fight whenever they play Kentucky.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think, you're right. It's a 20.5 point spread. I think that, a 20-7 game is like, just seems like what these teams always play. I don't know, but, maybe that kind of flips again this year, because, the Georgia defense is the weak point. The offenses look good. So maybe we get like a 31-20, like 31-20, like, or 31-23 backdoor cover or something like that. I don't know. These guys, like, they get up for the Georgia game, like whatever it is, like no matter how good Georgia is, no matter how bad Kentucky is, it's just, I like the Wildcats to cover if we're handing out betting advice here.
Yeah, you go for that one. Lastly, just real quick, one of the games I was looking at the schedule. Mississippi State's playing Texas A&M. Mississippi State, that's another team that's improved. It's like you look at the SEC, there's so many good teams in the league this year. Mississippi State hang with A&M like they did Tennessee?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we saw the offensive deficiencies that A&M had. I think Mississippi State's defense is not as good as Auburn's defense, but I think that Mississippi State's offense is much better than Auburn's offense. So, I think that that's what Jeff Lebby has made this team. They haven't won an SEC game since 2022, but I don't expect that to change. But they're in these games. They're not a pushover anymore. You can't just circle them and be like, yeah, that's a win. We don't need to, we don't need to get after it during practice this week. They're not like that anymore. They were last year, and Jeff Lebby really, he was on the hot seat after year one, and he comes in and he's not on the hot seat anymore. He's getting a couple more years to try to see what he can do with this team. And, they lost a ton of talent in the portal. It didn't matter. They brought in some guys that have stepped up, so credit to them for, doing what they have to do to compete in SEC games. I don't think that they get their first SEC win since 2022 this year or this weekend, but I expect it to be a fight, just like they did against Tennessee.
Yeah, it should be an interesting weekend in the SEC. Again, that Alabama Vanderbilt game is going to be a fun one, and Florida Tennessee I think is going to be interesting with Arch going against that defense. But Adam, I appreciate you coming on the show. I kept a little bit longer than I said I would. I think that usually happens whenever I have you on, though. But again, appreciate you taking time on the show, talking all things SEC. And if the listeners, viewers want to follow you online, where can they find you?
Yeah, SaturdayDownSouth.com and the Saturday Football Newsletter. We've got you covered with all of that stuff. We've got some good stuff coming out this week ahead of Alabama Vanderbilt. So, yeah, check it out.
All right, I got to check out Adam's work over at Saturday Down South. And Adam, again, appreciate the time, and I look forward when we get to do this again.
Sounds good.
All right, once again, thanks to Adam Spencer for joining me on today's podcast. Like I said, Auburn game this week, so no Auburn opponent preview. So it's a lot of fun to talk with him, all things SEC. Real quick, before we get out of here, just look at what's going to be going on in the SEC this weekend. And we mentioned these games with Adam. Kentucky's playing at Georgia. Georgia dropped to 12. Georgia's 20.5-point favorite. I don't think Georgia wins by 20.5. I think they probably win 24-10, something like that, 24-9. It'll be a rock fight. They'll pull away late. You'll never feel like Georgia's going to lose, but it's usually what happens when Georgia and Kentucky play. Texas and Florida, 2:30 ESPN. Texas only a 6.5-point favorite, I think, because the Florida defense. We'll see how Arch is going to do here. I think Texas will win. Will it be ugly? And also with this one, Florida loses this game. They drop the 1-4. And we just saw Sam Pittman get dismissed. Now is Billy Napier next if he loses this one. It'll be a test like we talked about on there, going against that Florida defense, who's played really well. Number 16, Vanderbilt at number 10, Alabama. Alabama is a 10.5-point favorite at home. They over-under 56 points, 56.5, excuse me. Alabama wins, but this is going to be a high-scoring game. Then you have Kent State, Oklahoma. Oklahoma's going to blow that one out. They're 45.5-point favorites. Mississippi State and Texas A&M. You got to go to A&M here, but Mississippi State is going to keep that one close. They've been playing really well this year. It really came close to knocking off Tennessee this past week. Looking around the top 25 and the game outside the SEC is going to get a lot of interest, especially for me. Number 3, Miami. Number 18, Florida State. At Florida State, really messes up. This probably would have been game day had Florida State not lost to Virginia. Florida State offense was great, and they'll be at home in this game. It'll be a packed-out house there in Tallahassee. When Miami come in town, Miami's really good. I think Miami's going to win this one. But that is going to be a fun football game. And then finally, Troy is hosting South Alabama. I am a student at Troy University, and I say the Trojans are going to beat South Alabama. And obviously, I am not biased one bit in that pick. Anyways, that's going to do it for this edition of the Phillip Jordan Show podcast. The last edition of this show for the week. We'll be back next week previewing, talking about Auburn and Georgia. We'll jump into some more Auburn talk, and then obviously we'll preview the Georgia Bulldogs as Auburn will play them next week as well. Again, thanks to Adam Spitzer for coming on the show. Thanks for early in the week with Logan Fowler for coming on. I hope everybody has a great weekend. We'll be back on the air on Friday night for Dothan Woods football after a week off. Please check that out on 96.9 The Legend. Hope everybody has a great weekend. No Auburn football this weekend, but enjoy some college football. Till next time. Bye-bye.